Hello folks. So as a disclaimer, I'm not a welder and I know how to make things stick together, but it does the job. And also I want to point out that this cab that I'm making is not at all a safety related item. I'm leaving the original roll bar on there. The cab is to provide shelter from the weather. So provided the cab is strong enough to hold itself up, that's good enough for me. I'd also like to point out that one of the design requirements for this cab is not to modify the tractor in any way. I'm not going to cut anything on the tractor. I'm not going to drill anything on the tractor. Okay folks, so when you're looking for glass for your tractor cab project like I did, found an old bus, and it's kind of nice because the top windows slide down over top of the bottom windows, so you can open or close them if you want. So I took out a bunch of them. I took the front panes out. Now what's cool about these is this is safety glass, so it's 2 panes of glass, and where it's a bus it had 2 big panes. So I'm going to try to use those as my front and my back windshield. It's good enough for the bus driver, it's probably good enough for me. And of course, just inside the door of the bus, on your right hand side, there's always a heater. So I stole the heater core out of it, which is awesome because there's 2 12-volt fans there, and the core, you know, there's the core, boy. It's pretty dirty. But anyway, so that's a really, you know, a big one. I don't need something that big, but it's what I have, and it's free. So I actually cut all the metal, put it in place, and then tack welded it in place. Well, that would be okay on the floor. Like, who cares if there's slag and welding flux and all that drops on the floor? But of course I don't want that to drop on the seat of my tractor and all over the fenders. So I took this old, it's actually an old curtain, saturated it, put it in the sink, got it all wet, and just spread it out over the tractor. All right, this is the start of the do-it-yourself inexpensive tractor cab. And what we have here is a roll bar. It's a 4-point roll bar that came off of a John Deere Z-Track. This roll bar was made by Femco, and it was purchased at an auction. It had a plate across here, which this would be the back of the roll bar, and of course that's the front. What we're going to do is increase this angle, or I guess I should say decrease this angle, so it's slightly less than 90 degrees, because I want my front windshield to slope like this so that the snow doesn't stick to it. And then this is the back, and I also want it to be either 90 or slightly less than 90. So that means we have to shrink this angle and this angle. And we got some serious torches that I'm gonna get a lesson on how to do this. So we'll heat these guys up, bend them, and when I get my final mounting height and locations all figured out, I suspect I'll be cutting off the bottom 2 feet or so for this roll bar, and I'll actually insert it in the horizontal piece to just increase the distance between the front and the back of the cab. So this is all going on an L3800 diesel Kubota, and I'm going to save the original roll bar. I'm not going to take it off, and it won't be damaged through this process. And I'm actually going to fix it at a slightly, you know, about that angle, just so that it can clear my 7-foot garage door. Won't be famous. So here we are, we just finished heating up this side, and as you can see, the angle is slightly less than 90, just ever so slightly. That's good. It's exactly what I want. So we decided to let that one cool before we start on this. I was tempted to go right for this other one since I already had the ratchet strap on this side, but that would not be sensible, because if we started cranking, it may even bend that one further. So we're going to just let this side relax and cool down. Now we're going to move over here. Still got our straps here, same as the other one. There it is. So we just cut the ears off of this thing. We've got it all bent with our nice 90s at the top. In fact, a little less than 90 in the front. The biggest challenge here was lining it up, you know, making sure that both sides were level and things were cut to the right height. Then the challenge was mounting. Got it clamped to the old roll bar, which will stay in place. And if I just clamped it without any spacers between, the new cab frame was tilted out like that more than I wanted. So I put these spacers in there. It's actually just an L bracket that goes like this and then in. You can see they're doubled up, and that is simply just to get this as close to vertical as I can. So they're just temporarily clamped there with C-clamps. So that's this frame comes up. I added a piece in here. So a 16-inch piece. And then down, and this just rests on a piece of wood on top of the hydraulic control unit for the front end loader. This is just a piece of 2-inch by 2-inch box steel, and it actually had a bend in it that if I detach the front end loader, which I don't know if I'll ever do, but I might, this comes off, but this always stays there, this heavy piece, and this always stays there as well. So I thought, what if I got something to rest, put the weight on that, and then I was able to kind of keep it in place and maybe use this bracket to just secure it there. So I've got this piece of metal here. I put a cap on the bottom of it because it was open when I cut it, and then I built up weld on either side. And again, please don't flame me for my welding skills. I built up weld on either side, so you can see there's like a little track between my fingers, and that track is going to fit on either side of this big heavy bar right here, which it does nicely. And then I welded a nut on there, and then I actually ground part of the nut off that wasn't, you know, I didn't get into the threads or anything because I wanted to have a little clearance so that that front loader arm wouldn't bump up against it. So if I set this in here, it sets in there nicely. Those beads of weld fit right in the groove nicely, like this. And I'm going to thread it through there. Now I'm going to take this bolt with a washer on it, stick it through there. I'm going to take these spacers, put them on top of the bolt. There's two washers there. Slide this all in. Just hand tight. That's really stable. Wow. Okay. I'm really pleased with that, how that turned out. And now the angle of this pipe is not quite the angle of that, but I don't care. I'm not worried about it. So my options here are to scab a new piece of metal on the side of these two to hold them together. I could do that on both sides if I wanted. But I think what I'm going to do is cut this piece at an angle, and then I can weld it along that edge. So that's this side. The other side, which was very time consuming to make. Remember I said I wanted to leverage that 5-inch pipe there that holds the, right there, that big pipe that holds the front end loader on. Well, got it, a cloth there just to protect it. So I got a piece of, I think it's well casing, I guess. Got a 6-inch piece of well casing, cut it lengthwise, and then cut it off in a 3-inch wide piece like this. And then I reshaped it to be 5.5 inches inside diameter. So the pipe is 5 inches, this is 5.5. That means this is slightly bigger. And when you put the two of them together, when you put I made two of these, you know, one for top and one for bottom, and they'll bolt together. So there's one, and this one will come up like that and bolt together. And the reason why I made these slightly bigger diameter than the pipe, by the time the bolts come up tight, these will be gripping that 5-inch pipe all the way around. So now I've got a bracket for that. So there's the top part of the cab frame, and it comes down. That's just actually a screwdriver that I've got stuck down in there, and it protrudes from the bottom piece and allows, it's a guide basically for the top. So that's just there temporarily. That bolt that I showed you on the other side, I can pull that out. I can pull a pin here. I'll be able to undo the U-bolts that hold the back part of the frame on, back part of the frame of the cab onto the roll bar, and then lift the whole cab off from the top. I made this crossbar yesterday, and the original crossbar that came with the roll cage was 6 inches too short, so I added a piece there. And I need to also do the same for the rear. I'm trying to use up as much of the scrap metal as I can, and everything else I've got left all has bends in it. And I think that piece that I showed you, the rear crossfoot member, I'm going to make like that. Just got at a metal recycler another roll cage, and this is a factory roll bar from a Kubota L35 tractor, and it came with the integrated roof. And there's the roof panel. This is the roof support, and there's the roof panel. And it was all bent up while I straightened it out, so it's looking pretty good. Just a little review of my tools here. I've got this metal grinder. I've used this for over a decade now, and works fairly well. Like for what it is, I paid 99 bucks for it on sale, half price. So it's a great tool for cutting. You need really two grinders in your possession. This one has a grinding stone on it, or a grinding wheel on it, and I need that for, you know, taking off burrs on metal or any kind of sharp edges. I want to do that because you don't want to end up with a sharp piece on the cab when you're done. So I do that. I use it for that purpose. And then this one has a cutting disc on it for times that I want to do fine cuts that I can't use that for. And I actually just acquired this hazardous location blower fan, and it sucks the air in there and blows it there. So when I'm welding, I'll open my back door and turn this on, and it draws the fumes away from where I'm working and blows them outside. And then from a welder perspective, I've got a 220 wire feed welder, but I'm not using it for this project where the metal is so heavy. I can use my arc welder. So I've got a Miller Thunderbolt XL. C-clamps. You need big C-clamps if you want to use them to clamp the new cab to the roll bar. So that's the extent of all the equipment I'm using. It's not a great deal of gear. I've got the door frames on both sides built. I also built the window frame. And you might be asking, well, you've already got all this heavy duty frame everywhere. Why are you building a window frame? You know, yes, it's true. I do have like this 2-inch by 2-inch box steel that encases the whole front area where the front window would be. But the glass itself, you can't mount it on this surface. You have to have a vertical surface, or a surface basically that is parallel with the pane of glass. So I needed to add a piece of angle iron with that surface somewhere. And the way I've chosen to do it means I can remove the frame if I want to. It'll be easier for me to install the glass that way. And the reason why you need that surface that's parallel with the windshield is because the glass rests in this rubber track, and the part where my thumb is, the glass goes in that groove, and this part is the part that goes over the steel that is parallel with the glass. So this is flexible, you can see, and once you get the glass and the gasket over the metal and then the glass inside the gasket, you need to put something in where my finger is to kind of compress those two edges. And here's that thing. It's this kind of a locking piece of rubber that goes in there to hold the glass together. So anyway, that's the reason why I had to build these extra frames. So I've got this other frame for the back built, and to mount it, in keeping with my goal of not damaging the existing roll bar in any way, the existing roll bar has welded nuts. Has nuts welded right on this part of the roll bar here. And that's so that when the roll bar is in the complete vertical position, which I'm not going to operate it there, I'm going to have it in this angle forever. When the roll bar is in the complete vertical position, you can put a bolt in here and push it up to the roll bar on the inside. It will prevent any rattles. Well, I'm not going to be using that nut for that purpose at all. I'm hoping that there won't be any rattles. If there are, I'll put a little strip of rubber in there. And so my rear window frame is actually leveraging this welded nut. And then so that's on both sides. I'm doing that to hold the window frame. And then on the bottom, I've built a bracket that basically is just a piece of steel that goes this way with 2 bolts that go through it all the way through, passed into the window frame, and I'll put nuts on the inside. So I'll now have the window frame secured by 4 points. So I've finished dry fitting everything on the tractor. It all bolts up. When I went to the hardware store, I could not find anything that was really close at all. So I ended up just buying Tremclad Rust Paint Gray. And it was actually kind of it's just basically off-white. It was all it was. So I noticed the Kubota roll bar almost has like a little bit of a bluish tinge to it. And it's certainly a dark gray. So I added some blue. I added some Oxford blue and some flat black rust paint that I had, and mixed it all up, and just gradually added more and more black, and I got out almost an exact match. All right, folks, so we're a little bit further along. We've got the right hand side door, the frame of it's complete. So I've got a clasp or a latch that I made here. So I've got a power takeoff pin, the power takeoff hitch pin right here, and you can see I built just a little latch, and this is welded on to that front support, so therefore the front of the door is extremely well supported, and I'm not worried at all about when the door being closed. I'm not worried at all about those hinges being under any stress at all. Got the windows in the doors. So this is the roof off of the L35 roll bar that I bought. It was about 10 inches too narrow for the new cab that I'm building for my L3800. So I cut it right down the center. I was at the metal recycler yesterday. I bought this big piece of metal. I don't know what it is, but I cut off a chunk of it. And I've got the new roof spread apart just the right distance. And I had all this foam padding on it. I assume so that if you hit your head or something, like if the tractor rolled over, you'd have some padding. But anyway, so that of course would be in the way if I was welding. So I scraped all that off with a scraper blade, and I should have done that scraping before I did the cutting with the grinder, because the edge is all jagged and that kept breaking my razor blade. This piece is going to lie right on there like that, and I'm going to weld it in on both sides. I'm just going to tack it on the inside, but on the outside, or on the top part, I'm going to actually MIG weld it the whole way just to make it waterproof. The frame of the cab lines up quite well to that welded nut in the roll bar. So I reused that hole that's already in the roll bar and put my bolt through there. And now this is locked on there with the bolt instead of those U-bolts, which this is better. It's a grade 8 bolt, and cost $3 a bolt. So for $6 I have the rear end mounted. Okay folks, well here we are with a walk around of the nearly finished product. So I've got my rear window in, which is obviously the most important if you're snowblowing with a rear snowblower. And then I've got my side windows in. This panel and this panel do open. Front window in. Same on this side. And so the next piece, in phase 2 would be to put in some plexiglass to kind of cover any of these open spots. It's all open in here on both sides. It's open underneath the windshield. So there will be quite a bit of airflow. I'm just relieved that I won't get sandblasted by the snow. So that's how it looks from the outside. I've got about 3 inches of clearance when I come out of my 7-foot garage door, 7-foot tall garage door, and that's exactly the amount that I wanted. So that provides a little buffer in case I put chains on the rear wheels, or in case ice builds up in front of the garage door, or I don't know if there's a board or something I drive over, or whatever. It just gives me a little bit of clearance. But I didn't want too much clearance because that would mean sacrificing height inside the cab. Okay, so here I am inside the cab with the left door open, and I'll just give her a shot. And this is one of the kind of neat things. I built this heavy angle iron support right here, and the one that's connected to the frame is angled down just ever so slightly, so that when the one on the door hits it, it'll kind of bring the door up into place, and that's exactly what I wanted to have as far as alignment goes. So now that door is locked in place. I've not put a latch on this door on the right hand side. I just put a pin through it, but they're in place. I can't reach the windshield unless I lean really far ahead, and there's ample room. There's probably, well, let me show you. I don't know how much that is, maybe 3 or 4 inches between my head and the roof. This dished out frame that I made, this dished out frame support, is actually pretty spot on where I need it. My head is about here, and there's quite a bit of clearance back to that. So if I was doing some big off-road and taking jumps with the tractor, it might not be enough clearance, but it's fine. And I'm far enough away from the rear window that I'm not going to bump into it either. So that's how it looks from the inside.